All right, so we are hitting our last paper of the semester. This is the final culmination of everything that we've learned in an entire semester of writing. My hope for you and my goal for you to learn is to learn how to read a bunch of different texts, learn about the text, formulate an opinion about the topic using the literature that you read, and then being able to present that opinion using sources, data, statistics, and expert opinion or personal experience to back up the things that you're saying. So that's the main goal of this class. Once again, it's I want you to be able to read a bunch of different things about a topic, formulate a unique opinion about your topic, make sure whatever opinion that you formulate, you're able to back up with data, statistics, expert opinion, and be able to present that expert opinion in a nice, concise way of writing. And so this presentation is about how to do that and how to structure your thoughts so that you are writing analysis that looks like what I'm looking for. This assignment builds on the last one. If you did really well on the last essay, you will do great on this one. But it's basically the same concept of giving a hot take and then um, analyzing that hot take and using different sources to back up the things that you're saying. So if you go here, so let's say my topic that I'm writing about is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. To review, in 1964, Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act, which ended segregation in the public schools and gave African Americans a lot of rights that they had been looking for. It gave them the right to vote, it ended the Jim Crow laws, it ended segregation of pools, libraries, all kinds of stuff, right? And it was a big step forward for minorities and African Americans in 1964. However, I think we can all agree that while there are a lot of good things that came from that, there were some negative parts or ways in which the Civil Rights Act didn't go far enough. So let's pretend that's my topic is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And let's pretend I'm reading sources on the next one. So let's say I'm reading this source, right? And I start reading about how after segregation in the American South, private religious schools started popping up everywhere um, after segregation had ended. Now, a lot of these schools didn't say that their intended purpose was to have segregated schools. However, it is quite the coincidence that all these schools started popping up the minute the public schools, you know, when segregation was ending. So here we have a source that tells me that private schools in the South, if you look here at in purple highlight, private schools in the South were established, expanded, and supported to preserve the Southern tradition of racial segregation in the face of federal courts dismantling separate but equal. White students left public schools in droves to both traditional and newly formed private schools. From 1950 to 1965, private school enrollment growth grew at unprecedented rates all across the nation, with the South having the largest growth. So right there we have what I consider expert opinion telling me that after the Civil Rights Act was passed and schools became desegregated, these religious private schools started popping up in a way to keep segregation alive. And so I sit there when I'm learning about the Civil Rights Act and I go, maybe the Civil Rights Act didn't go far enough. Maybe something should have been put in there to keep this concept from happening, right? So now I'm starting to think, while I do think the Civil Rights Act was a good act, and I do think a lot of good things happened there, maybe it didn't go far enough, you know? Then I come across this article right here that also talks about how private schools grew at unprecedented rates and even gives some statistics to back up the things that they're saying, right? And so now I'm starting to have two sources that are kind of saying the same thing, and I start really strengthening my opinion that maybe the Civil Rights Act didn't go far enough because it seemed to pave the way for these religious private schools that were aimed at keeping segregation going. So now I want to write my analysis, right? And I want to follow this formula that I'm going to give you for what I think analysis should look like, okay? And if when you're writing your paper, you can do this concept over and over and over, you'll do great, okay? Every time you have a thought, that's a hot take, right? And that's your opinion. And you need to back up your opinion with research articles, with data, statistics. And as long as you can do that, you're going to be great in this class, right? So right here is a section of what I'm going to write about the Civil Rights Act. This is just one part of my analysis of the Civil Rights Act, right? But hopefully what you can see with what I wrote is a nice little format that I want you to follow so that you can see how I want you to write this stuff so that you have yourself some good analysis, right? So I'm going to say right now, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, looking at sentence 1 right here, was a great achievement for the Johnson administration, but it didn't go far enough in solving the racial problems African American citizens faced in America. That is Brian Dudek's opinion, okay? That is my opinion based on these articles I read, and so now I'm going to formulate that opinion, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to back it up so that I'm good, right? After the Civil Rights Law was passed, some organizations kept their racist behaviors, but they became better at disguising them. That's my analysis, right? You saw the 2 articles I read, and so this is my analysis based on those articles I read. For example, private school education started to become a popular trend in the 1950s. According to the Southern Education Foundation, so here we go, here's my sources right here, from 1950 to 1965, private school enrollment grew at unprecedented rates all across the nation, with the South having the largest growth. This growth in private, so right here, I say that, I quoted it from my source, and now here I am citing that source. Make sure you always cite your sources in every paragraph, especially when you take a direct quote from a source, right? That's always going to be author's last name and the page number you got it from. If there is no author, then you can use the title of the article. And if it's a website like this was and there aren't page numbers, then use the paragraph number and put para and the paragraph number. That right there is a fact and is something I got from an article with expert opinion, right? So here we go. So there we go. There was my opinion, my analysis, and there was something to back it up. Now I'm going to keep going. This growth in private school education was a response to the growing fears among Southern Caucasian families that public K-12 schools would incorporate black kids into the white schools. Many families transition their kids to private schools to keep the white kids from having to go to school with the black kids. This is all my opinion based on the stuff that I read. Most of these private schools had religious titles and called themselves Christian schools. They said their mission was to educate kids from a religious perspective. However, the real reason Christian schools were established were to keep segregation alive. So right there, you have an expert opinion, which is McNeil, saying that the reason these things were established was to keep segregation alive. That right there is a quality paragraph which expresses my entire opinion, my analysis of the things that I read, and then research articles to back up what I've been saying. Okay? If you can follow this format for everything that you say, so that you are always starting, because remember, this paper is going to have many sections to it. You're going to analyze many aspects of this policy, and so you've got to make sure you are following this format for each one of them, okay? If you do, 5 or 6 different analyses of this policy, you'll easily have the 4 pages that the paper requires, okay? So this is the format I want to see. This is strong analysis right here. See if you can follow that, and good luck on your rough drafts.